Welcome, everybody, to week 12 of the strategy series, week 12 of Arc Analytics, the Arc Academy for Qlik, hosted by Arc Analytics. This is week 12 of the total workshop series, and it's week 2 of the intermediate strategy series, where we talk about advanced, complex topics, but we do it at a high level. And then later on, we'll make some more specialized videos and specialized walkthroughs and stuff to go through some of that real technical nitty-gritty. But today we're going to be talking about the strategy of scripting. We talked about the intro to scripting strategy. And if you don't know what scripting is in Qlik, I suggest you go back and watch that. I think it's week 5 or 6 or something. That will give you a good idea to just what's available function-wise, how to use parameters, some of the things that allow you to really operate the script like a true tool, like a true data transformation pipeline tool, right? So let's get into it here. If you're not super familiar with the scripting strategy, with scripting in general in Qlik, there's a couple different places you could put script. And this is why it matters, is because originally Qlik View and Qlik Sense, you have script that's in the back end and you have script that's in the front end. And there's different functions that allow different things to happen. So back end functions can be back end specific, some work in both, and some only work in the front end. So you have this Venn diagram of functions that only work between back and front end. That was kind of the original format there of scripting, when you just had Qlik View and Qlik Sense. Qlik Cloud has really opened up the capability there. You now can kind of partition script outside of the application. And you could do this before. I'll kind of get into that. There were some hacky ways to do this before, but it wasn't really as commercialized as it is now. It didn't really have the proper channels, especially to be set up like a pipeline tool, like automation. Like Talend, and be using more the Talend pipeline data fabric style things. So getting into it, why script matters. Script matters where you put this script, how much script you're adding, what the purpose of it is, how it's documented. The main reason that you even worry about script is performance. Performance of your script, there's performance in the structure of the script, whether you do it in the back end or front end, and then there's the actual function itself, how much you actually tweak that one formula, how much you actually want to optimize the order of operations that Qlik is maybe trimming and matching and doing all of these different flags, right? So the main reason we even talk about scripting is performance. If you're working with Excel workbooks with a couple hundred records, this probably doesn't even matter. This is more for the enterprise situation where you're dealing with millions, hundreds of millions, even billions of records, and they're all spread out across multiple systems, and they're all updating in near real-time environments. You're doing incremental loads, doing logic, doing geocoding, change data capture. You got a lot of processes going on there. So performance is why script matters. The next thing here is version control. Where do you put your script, whether it's just a simple formula like this, like a sum of sales, where you put that and memorialize that has a trickle-down effect to where it affects your end user, right? Where, if you put this in the front end, you can put it as a master measure. And the master measure has a lot of great tools with the business glossary and things like that. Or, pushing something like that to a catalog component is a much different implication on how your organization has it structured and how they approach you and your data landscape and using data as a marketplace. Moving through things, readability. Readability is huge in terms of the performance and version control, because if you have script that's out there, even if it is a simple sales formula, you want people to come in and be able to read it after you. If it has all these variables tucked in there, and if the script gets so decentralized that the variables are being pulled from a master file, and the master file lives on another server, and it's all disconnected, that can be great. That can make things really decentralized and it can be bulletproof, but you have to consider, how are people going to be able to reference these formulas in the day-to-day use? Where is the data presented to them? Where's the structural component? And that glossary communicated to the user? And how easy is it for them to go in and make those changes? And this approach can vary, whether you're internally working on, say you have an organization where it's you and another Qlik developer, you need to approach that situation very differently than you developing on behalf of an organization where, say, I have other agencies or other offices or other bureaus that I'm developing for, right? If I'm developing for them, I have to be able to develop this in mind to be able to hand things off. So readability is really key here. And Qlik Cloud has done some things here, like I mentioned, version control. Qlik Cloud now allows that. It's built in. You don't really have to worry about it. So scripting in the back end is a little bit better for that sake. And then speed. I added this separately because even though it is highly related to performance, I really wanted to emphasize speed of the thought, speed of the user, speed of how you make those selections, because it's not just how the Qlik app performs. It's not just if I click this button, how many milliseconds does it take my bar chart? What you're also measuring is the speed of questioning, the speed of doubt. And when a user opens an application, opens a report, gets a delivery mechanism via Teams, it's what's the speed of their question? How fast are you able to answer the speed? So that's what I mean by the speed there. Aside from the performance component, is how fast are they able to react to this? If they get a notification on their phone, are they saying, okay, well, maybe the app reloaded this morning. This data is from yesterday. Why am I getting this notification now? And by having to ask those questions, it means that, somewhere along the way, something maybe wasn't documented or optimized the way it could have been. So this is why script matters, and this is why we're talking about the strategy of it. Like I said, you previously had a couple different places you could put script. It was the back end or the front end. Now you can really park script, or what we'll call, global formulas, in the back end of an application, a QVS file. People used to really do QVD file generators, QVD app generators. You now can put them inside of data products. You can do separate script apps in Qlik Cloud. So setting up the pipeline, and then even now, data flows. Data flows take a lot of that scripting really off your plate. But on the back end, guess what it's doing? It's building script under the hood, whether you see it or not. So the better thing to be able to do is read the script. All right, moving on. ETLT. We've all heard it before, and I like this diagram here of the oranges because there's no right or wrong way to extract, load, or transform your data. And in this case, I put this here because some people do it the opposite way. Some people do extract, transform, and load. Some people even do, if you have a larger pipeline, I put this screenshot here, which I did steal from Qlik, so thank you. But depending on how large your pipeline, how many systems are involved, it's very, very likely that you have a use case somewhere out there where you need to extract from a source system. Maybe you have it pushed through a legacy pipeline, a legacy tool, some type of data catalog. Maybe it lands in a QVD, lands somewhere else. And then you have another pipeline coming in. And in that case, you're doing an extract, you're doing a load, you're doing a transform. And then to get it somewhere else, you might have to load it again. So that's where you get an ETLT. And this process, you can imagine, there's really no right or wrong way to do this. Again, it kind of comes back to, I always think it about like, if you're playing in the sandbox, are you playing in a sandbox with shovels, or are you on the beach doing renourishment style sand movement? And I think that's a really good way to think about this, is like anybody can go on the beach and move the sand around. I can go out there and I can take a shovel, I can make a sandcastle. But if I'm going on the beach and I expect to move sand the size of an island, you need very different tools to do it. You need a very different process. I might not move the sand in one big go. I might not pick it up and walk it over a mile and then drop it. I might move it a couple more times, I might push it through a tube. And data is the same way here. It's the same exact way. We're picking it up from the tree, we're picking our oranges, we're transforming it into juice, or maybe it's better in that case. Maybe we got a refrigerated truck. Maybe we don't need a refrigerated truck. I don't know. And then you transform it into orange juice when it gets there. I don't know. Maybe it's harder to ship the liquid. So all these different things to think about is that it's the same process no matter how it gets there. What's important to think about is how this affects your scripting strategy and where you put that script. You can put the script again in the back end of these applications. You can start daisy chaining these scripts together, kind of making this QVD library. You can make it a pipeline. However it needs to get there, you're gonna have to go through this process of evaluating this. And a lot of you have probably already thought about this. You just didn't actually put a name to it, or you didn't actually memorialize it. And what really helps now is if you work on enterprise applications a lot, what really, really helps is to start the whiteboarding process early. Literally draw it out. Take a piece of paper, draw out system 1, system 2, file 4, file 5, and figure out how they need to connect, their load times, their frequencies, those data connections. That's going to really help streamline your pipeline process later down the line. And it's going to help you clarify questions to the rest of the team and data owners where otherwise you're just walking around with a notepad. So I'm a big fan of visuals. I'm a big fan of Visio diagrams, whatever your company uses. The last thing here, again, this is the strategy series. We're going high level, and the comments are always open for questions. But the last part of this about scripting strategies, things to consider when using it, is how to structure this between the items that I mentioned. QVS files, using QBD generators as applications, data catalogs, data products are brand new. I got a screenshot of that here. And then, some people would even probably consider this the structured approach now with data flows. You have data flows. You could add in data fabrics, data fabric. You could add in other components here that aren't even in the Qlik ecosystem. If you're using multiple tool sets and you're using other engines somewhere along the way, your options to place this logic really start to expand. And don't get me wrong, optionality is a good thing, but what I would also suggest is that no matter what you choose to do it in a way that's consistent. Because if you are coming off of a migration, Qlik Sense to Qlik Cloud, you have a bunch of QBD generators that are sitting out there. They're separate Qlik apps. They're generators. They probably have a useless front end, but that was their dedicated purpose. So, there's no need to just go reinvent the wheel and just start repackaging all those things into pipelines and everything. If they're working fine, move them to cloud, slowly move them into just data scripts in Qlik Cloud, and take it one piece at a time. It doesn't have to be this massive lift and shift. If you're completely new to Qlik Cloud, you're not going to know what a QBD generator is. You're not going to have to worry about that. You're going to go straight to the QVS. You're going to go straight to a script. You're going to go straight to having it in your catalog. So data products, very new, very cool concept here. And if you've been around a larger type of data catalog, this is really going to resonate with you. Specifically the Qlik data catalog, the on-prem version. Now it's more the Talent catalog. If you ever use Informatica, something like that, any MDM tool, this is going to feel like a light version of that. It allows you to kind of pre-package and tag these data sets that have, a trusted, glossary and everything kind of in one component, so that a business user can come in. And again, this was really popular back when self-service analytics were like the number one thing. And now it's hard. It was harder to get to this point 5 years ago. It took a lot more manual tools and structuring and kind of building and curation to get here. But now it's built right in. It's right into the product suite. And I think this is going to be a really nice tool as you start packaging it with some of the other AI features like Qlik Predict and the AI assistants and things like that. You're really going to be able to start pointing these questions, these chatbots, the ML models. You can be able to point them at specific data products rather than just an individual QBD or data source. You already have that like layer that you can kind of consider like it'd be your gold layer in a medallion structure. So data products, brand new. Again, think about, be cognizant of your data, how it gets from point A to B, from ET to L, and all the way back through. That pipeline is becoming more and more important as we move towards real-time data. Systems are getting faster every day. Data structures getting more complex. Everything is getting more data rich. The sooner you get a handle on these things, the better. So that's all I got. And thank you for tuning in here to week 12. We're definitely excited to keep this ball rolling, and we're gonna have a lot more of these kind of videos switching up soon. So, please give feedback on what you liked, what you didn't like. We're starting to really evaluate what is kind of getting more attention and kind of responding to that. So feel free to let us know.